This is George Toth, your host for Living Green and Living Smart. As you can tell in this clip here, this is from a previous episode when we put all 8 plants after we plucked them out of the AeroGarden, as the instruction manual says, to leave only 1 plant per pod. Well, we did that, but I felt really bad and I didn't want to throw out any of those tomato plants. So here's the experiment. Let's get to it. So in the previous episode, I foil wrapped the cube up and put 8 tomato plants in 1 rockwool cube. So we're going to unpackage this and get it ready to square up, and we're actually going to stick it into one of the AeroGarden's pod. So you don't have to use those sponges. You can use rockwool cube, believe it or not. It's actually, I think personally, it's better because it absorbs the water a lot better and it's not stubborn like some of those sponges that I've come across in the AeroGarden. So we're going to get ready to cube this up. You can see all the healthy, beautiful root systems on this rockwool cube. And the goal here is to properly cut right through it. So use a good knife. I prefer a steak knife or something that's got a jagged edge. So look through the top when you do this and make sure you always cut from top down, never straight down. Eyeball it, get comfortable where it's going to cut through. Don't get too close to all the root, like one side of the root. Go in between and go back and forth evenly and cut right down. You won't hurt the roots this way. You'll chop right through them carefully and clean. Once you do that, you split it and see how nice it cut? Can't see any roots in there. Nothing's torn. Well, we're going to do the same thing with the next one. Going to cut down in between, and you're going to cut it with a zigzag motion like you're chopping a tree down. And as you can tell, nice cut. There's a lot of little roots in there, so it shouldn't affect the plant at all. You don't want to leave these plants too long in a rockwool cube, especially when there's 8 of them. They want to grow roots, big roots, and in such a small rockwool with 8 plants, that's impossible. So at this point, you're just cubing them all up nicely. You're cross-cutting. All of the plants survived, even the little tiniest one. So this is a really good method, and I wanted to demonstrate from the previous video that even the little tiniest tomato plant will survive in this method. I didn't lose any plants. Going on to the Grow Anything, just add seeds kit. This is the kit that I suggest you purchase because it has empty pods in it. So I'm gonna open it up and show you what you can expect to get when you buy this. Inside you'll find the user manual. Another package of plant food. You'll have caps if you need them. And all the sponges. There's no seeds in the holes. So we're just gonna get 1 pod out of here. and I'm going to demonstrate to you how easy it is to put your tomato plant with rockwool into these. The tops are actually not paper but plastic, so I'll need to take one off and demonstrate how I use the tops. So you can see there's a size difference on the tomato plant. It's quite shorter and the pod's longer, and the sponge is a heck of a lot longer too. So we'll have to add an extension to the rockwool to give it the same size as what's in there. So if I measure up side by side, you can tell that I need to add a little extra piece just to substitute that difference. So I'll just take one of the extra rockwool cubes I cut, and I'll cut it to the size required. If I don't cut it to the same size, what'll happen is it'll be too low. So using a knife, same motion, zigzag, we'll cut it. Now we'll put that piece in at the bottom, and we'll wedge it in there. Rockwool tends to be like a sponge, the hard sponges, so it fixes itself quite nice into the pod without moving. I actually prefer it much better than those sponges because once you lock it in there, it's not moving at all. Some sponges sometimes do float, so you got to be careful with what other applications you do use. This one's probably the best in my opinion. Once again, I need to tear the top open because this is already a grown plant versus you dropping a seed in typically and letting the plant go through. So just tearing the top on a grown plant works just as good. The top's required because it doesn't allow sunlight to go into the pod, which creates bacteria, LJ, and stuff you don't want at all around the plant. See how I pushed it all the way down with a knife? If you can't get it with your finger, do whatever you need to in order to nicely, gently tug it in there. Now that plant is in there, nice and secure. Gently put the paper back on the pod. Carefully not to damage the stem of the plant. See folks how easy that was, making your very own custom built AeroGarden pod. You can use the AeroGarden's pod in jars or in another AeroGarden system, and it's ready to go like this. It's pretty much saved you time from growing another one from seed. I'm just looking at all the roots, how much there is. So this plant shouldn't have any problems at all starting off with the amount of roots. So what do you guys think of this method? I like it. Maybe some comments and some feedback would be great from some of you that have done other methods. Alright, so we're going to take a jar, and I'm not going to use the metal lid. It's just too dangerous to cut that, so I have a hack here. I like to use foil and make the foil thick enough so that it holds that pod on the top quite secure. So I like to put a good couple of layers of foil, big enough to cover the entire top of that jar, So like 3 or 4 layers should be sufficient. And then once it's layered quite thick, hold it firmly and then push down all the way around the top of the jar. I use an elastic band doubled to hold it in place, just for the heck of it, because if you do decide to pull out the pod at one time, at least that elastic's going to be hanging onto the lip of the jar so the whole thing doesn't come off. So what we need to do now is grab a knife and poke a hole right through, enough for the bottom to penetrate, and the rest you'll gently just push down, and the entire AeroGarden's pod will sit nicely in there. It should just pop in at the very end because it cuts its way into the aluminum. So very gently turn the knife as you penetrate the aluminum, and only make the hole big enough for the bottom of the pod to go in. As long as the bottom goes in, you're good, because the rest is just going to cut its way in as you push it down. So now with 2 hands, I'm just going to gently give it a downwards motion evenly so that I don't accidentally cut the foil the wrong way, pushing it sideways. So just go straight down, and then give it a good little tug at the end. It'll pop right in. See that? See how easy that was? Make sure you put the plastic back on top so no light penetrates through. I'm going to lift the side here to show you what it looks like behind the scenes. Next, what we're going to do is make a solution, and how the solution works is 1 cap full to 4 3/4 of a cup of water. I usually make a milk jug worth of solution, so whatever the amount of water that fits in there, I just scale it up based on that. So remember, 4 3/4 of water per cap. I'm going to take the top plastic paper thingy off, and I'm going to use a funnel to fill that up. As you can see, I already have my solution on the side there ready to go. So I'm going to grab a funnel and get that all filled up. I'm going to lift up the side so you can see how it fills. The other option is to take out the pod and filling it that way, but I'm going to do it the harder way just to show you how impossible it is to screw this up. Fill it right up, not quite to the top, but just below the top lip. As the plant grows, it'll drink the water and the roots will drop lower and lower as the water level goes down. But as it's a young plant, I fill it right up to the top, but not high enough that it actually touches the paper. And after you've done that, we can just put the paper back on. Gently put the paper on because you don't want to scratch the stem of the plant. Tomato plants do not like moisture on the bottom leaves as well, so that's why those paper protectors are quite good to have. Okay, so I'm going to add the other 7 plants into some nutrient and put that to the side. It's going to go into my greenhouse. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video on what you can do with the extra plants that you do pull out of the AeroGarden's pods. This gives you a good showcase that you don't have to throw away those good plants. They're all alive and you can turn them into more plants. So if you enjoyed this video, I hope to see some new likes, more subscribers, and some comments. Please let me know how I did, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Just look at that greenhouse. Ooh, wow.